Hey Daniel, it is Wednesday night. The week is halfway over. Have you been having a good week so far? Hey Boo.
Yes.
The time has finally come for me to review the Pixel 4 XL. The first thing to note is that this phone is not actually a huge change from the Pixel 3 XL, which I came from. It has very similar form factor, has almost the same feature set, but there's just been a couple changes. When you look at the overall form factor, they've removed the notch, which is a really big deal. I hated the notch and actually disabled it in software basically every time I used any sort of Pixel 3 XL. I don't even care about the extra screen real estate. I just don't want a notch. I don't want weird little features in the corner of my phone where you can't really take advantage of that space. A pure, clean rectangle is a much better experience in my opinion. On the Pixel 4 XL, there is a brand new camera setup. On the Pixel 3, we had one camera on the back and two cameras on the front, and they've actually flipped that. So now we have one camera on the front, and we have two cameras on the back. We've given up the wide-angle camera on the front of the screen, and we've gained a telephoto lens on the back of the screen. The other big change that's happened in this phone is there's a new authentication method. Instead of having a fingerprint reader on the back, it's using Project Soli and a bunch of sensors on the front of the device in order to authenticate you using your face. So let's talk about the camera, because one of the top things that I do with my phone is take photos. I have over 8,000 photos of my son at this point, and he's only just turned a year recently. So this camera is good. It takes really good pictures, but there's a whole bunch of problems with it that I'm not actually satisfied with. We've gained a telephoto lens on the back here, but it's not really easy or intuitive to use it. On the iPhone 11, for example, you have three cameras, and in the camera app, there is a button for each of the native resolutions of those cameras. And they do the magical interpolation between those zoom levels and between the different cameras, but from a user experience, you can both be native to the lenses that are on the screen and the sensors, or you can zoom and interpolate between them. On here, using the native camera app, I don't really get that control. I don't know when I'm using the native telephoto lens, I don't know when I'm using the native non-telephoto lens. It doesn't expose that in the experience, it just calls it 1x, 2x, and goes beyond that. It doesn't even snap to 2x, even though I believe that's the native resolution. And so you're always in this weird interpolated mode, which isn't great. I think in general, whenever you're using the actual sensor, you're gonna get better image quality, no matter what's happening from a computational photography standpoint. One of the other problems actually comes from how Android takes advantage of a multi-lens, multi-sensor camera like this. Because if you're using an app like Instagram or TikTok, it's not even possible to use those features. They are only able to access one front camera and one back camera. Now, I know this is probably the application developer's fault and not Google or Android's fault, but it still kind of is their fault, right? Because if they had built a system that maybe abstracted away the camera or didn't give the apps the complete control of the camera, then they could be implementing cool new features like this without having to wait for all of the applications to catch up, which they might never do. I take a lot of video, as you know, and I would say the video is slightly better, especially on the front-facing camera. That is something that I definitely appreciate, but in terms of the audio quality and the other feature sets that I'm relying on, it's gotten a little bit better, but it hasn't really changed, right? A lot of the same problems are still there, even if they've been mitigated a tiny bit. So let's talk about the style of this phone. One of the biggest changes is the removal of the fingerprint reader in exchange for face unlock. And they say it's the fastest face unlock of any phone, and I don't really care. I want my fingerprint reader back. I use my phone all the time in cases where I'm not actually looking at my phone. Oftentimes when I'm, for example, going from one meeting to another, I'm in a conversation, and I just want to check a single notification, right? I want to pull the phone out of my pocket and just hold it at waist height and authenticate. I can't do that anymore. Now I have to look at the phone, and it becomes a distraction. It becomes a disruption of whatever else I'm doing. And maybe this is just me, but I find that the face unlock fails a lot. So it works at night, it works in the dark, all those sorts of things. But sometimes I look at my phone, or I'm on a dock or a stand or something like that, and it just isn't unlocking, and then I have to end up touching the screen or swiping or pressing the power button and then doing the face thing again. And the whole thing is just disruptive, right? When my phone would fail to unlock with a fingerprint reader, I could just try it again, right? I just touch again and everything unlocks, everything starts working because there's a solid interaction. The idea of swiping up to unlock my phone just kills me. I hate it. Stylistically, they've got the new material, it's got new edges and things like that. I don't really like the feel of them, but that's okay. So I mentioned that we've got this new set of sensors in the front part of the camera here, and that is a big deal because This is introducing the Soli radar sensor. Soli is such a cool project. I remember going to one of the first tech demos at Google I/O where just hovering your hand above a Soli sensor, it could detect the way that you were twisting your fingers together, giving a tactile feel to an interaction that was digital. And I love that idea, but the implementation that we have on the Pixel 4 XL is not yet that, right? It's got really general motion gestures for going forward in a video, going back in an audio file, those sorts of things, silencing the phone, and it detects when you're around so that it can turn on and off the ambient screen. But I don't actually need any of that, right? I actually have found that my ambient screen being missing some of the time when I'm not actually well positioned to my phone is frustrating, because now I have to do something else to go and look at the ambient screen, look at my notifications, look at the time. So for me, Soli gives me basically no benefits and a bunch of costs and a bunch of problems. They've done a bunch of things that actually do improve the phone though. The display feels much, much smoother and much more interactive for a few reasons. They've increased the speed of the screen to around 90 Hertz instead of 60 Hertz, which just makes everything feel a little bit butterier. They've also increased the amount of RAM on the phone, which means that I'm more able to interact with multiple applications. Multitasking is faster, switching apps is faster, because it doesn't have to go and reload everything from disk all the time. The just general bump up in CPU speed is also appreciated because it means that all the apps that I used to run are running a little bit faster. They didn't offer any larger storage capacity on the Pixel 4 XL, which was really surprising to me. I would have paid more to get a bigger storage space because I am taking huge videos, huge pictures, and taking things off of my camera when I travel, and I want all of that content on my phone for short periods of time. The net feeling about this phone is that it was a little bit disappointing for me. I'm gonna definitely use it instead of my Pixel 3 XL due to the faster CPU, the more RAM, the nice back camera, the slight improvements to video, but the overall experience has suffered in a lot of ways that mean that I'm not fully happy with my phone, right? Humans are loss averse. We value losses more than we value gains. And so I'm a little bit frustrated to have lost some of the cool capabilities that I've had in past phones, but there's no way for me to go back and giving up these cool new features that we do have. If you have other questions about what it's like to carry around a Pixel 4 XL and to use this phone in combination with phone video editors, DSLRs, GoPros, all those sorts of things, happy to answer any questions. Feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks so much.